A Holler FM podcast.
Never sleep again.
Ooh, did I just give you chills, Chanel?
Girl, you know I'm sitting here because I did not mess around. I didn't even like to sing that song. So to hear it, I'm like sitting here, who Jesus? Because, you know, one thing I will say, because all of you guys who are have watched the Nightmare on Elm Street film series, any one of them, when you hear that song, we're all thinking the same thing.
What are we thinking?
He gonna come and get you.
I was thinking, yes! Freddy is coming out!
Girl, no, no. We are not on the same page. And for our listeners, y'all already know what we're talking about today. We are talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Part 3, Dream Warriors.
This is part of our Halloween horror series. We are revisiting all those movies that we watched as kids, and definitely Nightmare on Elm Street was one of the ones that we watched. Well, you know what? Let's be real. You watched and I hid under the covers.
Yes, that is true. So I do want to say is that we did see A Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one. I think we actually saw The Nightmare on Elm Street in chronological order, but I just kind of felt like we should do one of the sequels because I feel like the first one gets a lot of critique because it was the first one. It was the one that was directed by Wes Craven, so I feel like it gets enough critique, and I just felt as if we need to do the sequels. So Dream Warriors is actually, I feel like, is one of my favorite sequels from A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's one of my favorites.
And you know what, Vanessa, you're not wrong, because I was doing kind of the research, and I think that I read one review on The Nerdist, and they're another kind of, well, they started out as a podcast, and now they're, you know, look at TVs, movies, all these different things, and they said that A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is by far one of the best sequel follow-ups, which, surprisingly, I actually have to agree with, especially when you watch Freddy, or what is it, A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, which is a terrible sequel. To see the third one, it is so much better. So much better.
Yes, I agree.
Can I just say, the only sad thing about not watching the first one is not seeing Johnny Depp. Girl. You know, and here's something crazy, though. Here is something crazy is that we grew up with Johnny Depp. So, you know, Edward Scissorhands, What's Eating Gilbert Grape. But I didn't really get put on to Johnny Depp until I watched Pirates of the Caribbean.
I feel like everybody got, like, hooked on Johnny Depp after Pirates of the Caribbean.
No, that is not true, me, Vanessa. Really? That is not true.
No, I feel like in the 80s, it was like Johnny Depp, yay. But then I just feel like in the 90s, he kind of fell off. And then he did Pirates of the Caribbean in the 2000s. And now it's like, oh my gosh, Johnny Depp, love Johnny Depp. He's so cute. That's how I feel. I mean, I think Johnny Depp's a great actor. I don't see him as, you know, like a Hollywood heartthrob. But...
Yeah, I mean, he crazy. So I'm not trying to like hook up with Johnny Depp. Not that Johnny Depp is trying to come at me anyways. But no, for real. I mean, I watched Pirates and I was like, oh, ooh, what? And then I went back and I watched Nightmare on Elm Street and I was watching What's Eating Gilbert Grape and Crybaby. And I was like, how did I sleep on you for all these years, Johnny? Where have you been? I mean, so yes, that is the saddest part, was that I was like, I don't get to see young, beautiful Johnny Depp, and damn, I am objectifying the hell out of Johnny Depp right now, which is not okay.
I will say real quick, because we're getting off topic, but I will say Johnny Depp has aged very well.
Yes, right? I just saw him in a commercial for cologne, and I was like, Robert, look at Johnny. Yes. Can I... Although, you know, there's all that weirdness with his wife or his ex-wife and all that, the beating stuff. But luckily, we aren't talking about Nightmare on Elm Street, so we can move right along.
Yes, we are here to talk about A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors.
Dream Warriors. Okay, so we've kind of already gotten into a little bit. What are you drinking?
I am finishing up the Stella Rosa. There's just a little bit left in there, so.
No, I appreciate that, because I feel like that means that you aren't drinking like a different bottle every week. But I'll be feeling real self-conscious, like, because I feel like every week we got a different drink over here. So let me just tell people, we aren't out here buying bottles after bottles. You know, we just drink one bottle together. So me and Robert, so there's two of us. And then once that bottle's done, the next time we do an episode, we buy another bottle. Just want to clarify that.
Well, let me tell people, like, I'm on the nursing school budget, so I can't be affording to buy, you know, multiple bottles and rotate. So I buy one bottle. When I finish that, I go to the next one. I used to have a collection of wine, though. I used to when I had, you know, the full-time job and I was not in nursing school. I did have like a box full of wine, but when I moved out here, I gave away a majority of my wines. So.
Well, it's okay, Vanessa.
Yeah.
The tunnel, what is it? The light is at the end of the tunnel, and once you are finished,
a light
we will shower you with bottles of wine.
There you go.
So you know what I'm drinking? So I'm trying to go back to my fall theme, and this is actually a gift from you, like way, way, way back in the day.
Oh.
And it's a cream liqueur that you are supposed to drink. Yep. Neat or over ice. And that is what I'm drinking.
I love Amarula. I love it. I do. The first time I had it when I was on a cruise ship, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? It is delicious. Well, I am glad you guys are drinking that.
We are drinking it. Well, you remember the story, which is that the first bottle you got me, Robert drank it all. Not in one setting, so let me just correct. Like, it wasn't like he just chugged it, but it was like over time, and by the time I looked at it, it was empty. So this bottle, I was like, nope, we ain't touching it until it's a special occasion. And I was thinking, oh, what's a better occasion than to drink it with Vanessa in the fall while we talk about A Nightmare on Elm Street.
And how do you like it?
You know what? I will be really honest. I thought it was going to be like a Bailey's or a Kahlua. And Robert was like, that ain't no Kahlua. Kahlua is Kahlua. And I was like, okay. And so I was reading the back of it because I was like, well, what is this? And I was like, what? It's a fermented and distilled, you know, African fruit that gets put in French oak. And then you're supposed to drink it neat or on ice. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, it sounds real fancy. It's very good. It's sweet, but it's very creamy. It's a creamy, sweet drink. And I would say to me, it's almost like drinking, I'm trying to think. I don't even want to say like chocolate milk because that sounds weird, but it's that same kind of feeling because of the cream and the sweetness to it, and it feels a little bit chocolatey. So it's good. It feels like a nice, good fall drink that you could have just neat, or I think with some ice. Either way is good. I wouldn't put it like, with Kahlua, you could put it in your coffee and stuff like that. I wouldn't do that with this. I would just drink it basically straight, like with ice.
Yeah, I usually have it chilled.
Thank you, Vanessa. And I would say
yay.
Cheers to you.
Cheers.
I'm glad we finally opened it because we've had it for a minute. Okay. Shall we get into it?
Let's get into it.
Okay, Vanessa. Did you give the synopsis last time? Was it me? Who did it?
I gave a synopsis last time, so it's your turn.
Girl, you don't want me to give this synopsis. I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it justice. Okay, so basically, here's what it is. We all know who Freddy Krueger is. He's a scary burnt man who got burnt up alive by a set of parents who knew that he was a child killer, and he got off, and so they killed him and took matters in their own hands. And then, he started haunting their kids in their dreams and started killing the kids. And he has the fedora and the, red and green striped shirt. And in this movie, so the first movie, Nancy was the main character, and Nancy finds out, oh my God, my mom and dad did this. That's why he's coming after us. And the way it ends is kind of ambiguous. Like, did she stay alive? Did she die? But we find out she stayed alive, went to grad school, studied sleep, and now Freddy is still haunting the kids from the parents. A lot of those kids are getting put into this psych hospital. And Nancy comes back, and they all work together to defeat Freddy, and his mom makes an appearance too as the nun, and you find out his origin story, how she basically got raped by 100 criminals?
100 maniacs.
100 maniacs.
That's what they call it, 100 maniacs, yeah.
That reminds me of that 10,000 Maniacs song. Anyways, so yeah, by 100 maniacs, and you find out his origin story, and luckily, they all work together, defeat Freddy, kill him, or so we think. And
that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Yeah,
that's it, right?
Right.
All right. So I gave the synopsis. You tell me, what did you think? Does it hold up? Is it still good?
I think it's still good. Like I said, I always felt that Dream Warriors was like the strongest sequel to come out of A Nightmare on Elm Street. I feel like it's the best one. So I think it still holds up, to be honest. I mean, even watching it now as an adult, not that I was scared, but there are still moments you're like, oh, where is he going to be at? Where is he going to be at? So I think it holds up. Do you think it holds up?
Yeah, so I remember when I watched the Friday the 13th, girl, I remember just sitting there on my phone. I was like, okay, there are the boobs, there's Jason, and whatever. It's like it's not rocket science at that point of what Jason does.
Right.
What I will say is that I tend to not like Freddy when he gets super campy and has all the wisecracks. And so I feel like Dream Warriors kind of still gets you in that place where he's not super campy and is like, haha, but he has a little bit of that, right? So there's a little bit of the wisecracking jokes, but not too much, so that he does still have some scary vibes to him. So I remember thinking, okay, I'm not under the cover scared, but there's definitely some points where I'm like, I'm gonna just turn down the volume. So I'm not, so I think it was that way. And I think that's something that I didn't feel with the Jason movies. So I gotta say, on that level of just the scare factor, the fact that the movie came out in 1987 and it still has a little bit of the, where's he, like you said, where's he gonna come from? I think that means that it still holds up. And the plot, you know, especially when you compare it to Friday the 13th, holds up significantly better. Like there's, I mean, I hate to say it because it's a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, so it's not like, you know, an Oscar award movie, but the plot is way more compelling and actually has some depth to it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it was, for a sequel, it was well written.
Right. And I think part of that is because they have, you know, Wes Craven come back and he's working with a team, you know, of other writers, of course. But I think, you know, because he created the character, I think some of the things that he infuses helps to kind of bring Freddy back. And I think from what I read, he wanted Freddy to be more malevolent, more scary, which I think I tend to vibe with a little more. But you know, he still has that fear factor, but you're also like, oh, now I get why he's this, you know, scary man.
Is it because he was, like, I don't get what you mean by, you see why he's this scary man, because you get the background of that, of how he was conceived, or is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean, right? So it's like,
oh, okay.
I guess I could have worded it better. Of like, you get a sense of why he went south. So you're like, oh, okay, now I understand why you were a psychopath. Because and the part, like, I think with Jason, and even, you know, we're not watching Halloween in this set, but like we could bring in Michael Myers. With both Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, there's always this question of like, what's the motivation? And the motivation is always like, they're pure evil. And I think at some point that starts to get a little unsatisfying. Like the idea that like Jason's just like, I'm going to randomly kill anybody that comes to Crystal Lake, no matter what you're doing. And I think what's at least cool about Freddy is that he has some motive and he has this background of, you know, coming from like a place of rape and with people, you know, or men that obviously weren't in their right mind.
Right. They were mentally impaired. I think they were like psychopaths and schizophrenic. And also I do want to say, this was back in the 80s, so the portrayal of people with mental disorders like schizophrenia, bipolar, psychopath is going to be very dated. So when they showed, did they show it, or am I mixing? You know, I think I might be mixing up my sequels. They didn't show. They showed the room, but it was already empty because it had been shut down. But in the further sequels, they actually show the mom in the room with the patients, and they're like all in this one room, like walking around in a circle and fighting amongst themselves, basically being demented. So I just want people to know that because the movie was in the 80s, and also when Freddy was born was like in the 50s, it is going to be a very not politically correct portrayal of mental patients. I just want to put that disclaimer out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, because the other thing that's very true that we don't see, at least in California, is that you don't see those kind of state or like psychiatric hospitals anymore. For one thing, people aren't getting institutionalized. That's been dismantled. And there is a real question of like, what does it look like to support and care for mentally ill, people? And I think we're struggling with that because there aren't state resources anymore. But even back then, I mean, you could argue, right, that the idea of putting 100 people that are quote unquote maniacs in a room in and of itself is extremely problematic.
Yes, exactly. And also, too, I think another reason why comparing Friday the 13th with A Nightmare on Elm Street, I think A Nightmare on Elm Street holds up much better. And I feel like that one of the reasons why is because Robert Englund, who played Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street series, he has fun with the character. You can really see him having fun, you know. That iconic line, "Sorry, Mom and Dad." I'm just quoting the movie, but his iconic line in Dream Warriors is when he kills, let me look up her name, her character's name, Jennifer. I believe that was Jennifer, the one who dies inside the TV. When he like lifts her up, he's about to bring her head into the TV. He's like, "Welcome to prime time, bitch." That was actually an ad lib from Robert Englund. It was not originally in the script. And I think there was another line in there that he ad libbed. But I think it helps to make Freddy seem more appealing. Because then you're like, oh yeah, you're waiting for those one-liners. Or at least I'm waiting for the one-liners because I love it. But I mean, when an actor is having fun with his character or with her character, it makes you want to keep watching the movie, including the sequels. And I feel like with Friday the 13th, I mean, I don't know if the stuntmen who usually play Jason are having fun with it, but it's kind of hard to tell because Jason doesn't really have any emotions. He just walks through the woods and then kills. So I think that kind of it kind of makes Friday the 13th stale in comparison to A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. I think kind of going back to what you're talking about with Freddy and the one-liners, I mean, that's one of the things that makes me not take him as seriously. And so I guess I would say, because I remember, I mean, as a kid, I was scared of all of them no matter what, because just his features, like the burnt face, the razor hand, the like red and green striped shirt, like all of that, you know, you knew it was Freddy and he was coming to kill. And part of what always gets me is the anticipation and the suspense and the waiting. And so I kind of felt like with the one-liners, he starts to get a little too, haha, you know, clever, funny, and it makes me not as scared. So it's kind of like what we were talking about when we watched Child's Play and you see the evolution of Chucky and you're like,
yeah,
oh, he's starting to get really campy. But with that said, I mean, one of the things I would say about this movie that never happens in like either Halloween or Friday the 13th is that you actually get real character development of Freddy Krueger. And so I think in a lot of ways, it's easier for Robert Englund to have fun with the character, to enjoy him, because, you know, Freddy is a, you know, he's a spirit, whatever you want to call him, but we're constantly learning more and more about his motivations and why he's killing. And he's interacting with the, you know, the screen in a way where like Jason and Michael Myers just can't do. Like it almost can be anyone behind, you know, Michael Myers or Jason. But Robert Englund is who you know as Freddy Krueger. And I think when they did the reboot and they changed it, yeah, you know, as somebody that watched the series, you're kind of like, oh, like you're just deflated because you're like, oh, you're not,
girl.
No. So I do think that he has a lot of fun and enjoyment. I think his development, though, happens at the expense of all the other characters in the movie. Like nobody else gets really developed because all the energy goes to the thrill and the scare and Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, and you know, I was thinking about that, and this is something that I feel like, since you mentioned the reboot, A Nightmare on Elm Street, which came out in 2010, since you mentioned that, I feel as if, though, like, true fans of horror movies, like I am, it's like I'm waiting for the villain to come out. Like, I'm waiting for Freddy Krueger. I really don't care about the other characters, because to me, they're supporting. It's like, I know you guys are going to defeat the villain, But I'm looking forward to the villain because I want to see him. And in the reboot series, I think they forgot about that. I think they forgot that horror fans want to see the villain. Like, we're rooting for the villain in the sense of, yeah, I can't wait to see Freddy Krueger on the screen and see how he's going to kill these people, hear his one-liners. The reboot, I saw it, and to tell you the truth, I fell asleep on it because it was so boring. But it's like they tried to make the characters like front and center, and then Freddy Krueger became supporting. And there's also other things that they did with Freddy Krueger where it just took me out of the movie, and I was like, did you guys see why Robert Englund's Freddy was successful? Why that franchise from like the 80s to early 90s was successful? Did you guys pay attention to that? Because you guys completely like threw that book out, and it really made the movie horrible. Like I said, I fell asleep on it because it was boring. I didn't miss anything when I fell asleep though, and I woke up. I mean, the movie was still going, and I still, figured out the plot and stuff. But that reboot was horrible. It was horrible, horrible.
I remember watching it. I don't remember much about it. And it's interesting because they did a reboot of both Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. And I don't remember either one of them being as profitable as the series were in the 80s. And I mean, for one thing, I think the 80s were kind of this unique time where, there's just a lot of, to me, movies that both kids and parents could watch together. I'm not saying that, parents should be out here watching Nightmare on Elm Street with their kid, for the record, because I certainly didn't like watching them. But I just felt like it's hard to recreate that magic. And so one thing that I do think is really cool about Wes Craven and the character Freddy Krueger is that this is something original that he came up with from a nightmare, and it's expanded into this huge franchise, but it's an original concept and idea. And that's the thing. It's like, I don't think, it makes a lot of sense to reboot it even in the 2000s, because a lot of us who were, watching Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street, like, we're always going to compare it. It's like it's too soon because we're comparing it to what we've already seen. And you're like, nah, this ain't it. I don't want to sit through it. I might as well just watch the OG ones. And so... Exactly. Right? So I would say, when I was watching Dream Warriors, I remember thinking what I liked about it was like, oh, cool, they brought back Nancy, and she kind of, it feels like she fulfills a purpose. So in her character, I don't think it's fleshed out anymore, but you get some character movement for Freddy through Nancy. And the other characters, like Kincaid, the black guy. Kincaid. The TV girl, Jennifer. Taryn, the drug dealer, or drug girl. Joey. What's her name? The Patricia Arquette character that pulls people in her dreams.
Oh, Kristen.
Like, all of those characters, to me, they are, like you said, they're basically just there so that you can kind of watch, like, ooh, what does the kill look like? What? Freddy just made him a puppet? That's nasty. I don't want to see that little boy as a puppet. Oh my God, her track marks are like little eyes. That's disgusting. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you're just watching for the kill at that point. You're not super invested in them. Like, I don't even know their names, and I can't remember half of it because I don't really care. I want to see what the kill looks like. But I guess that's the question for me, though, is like, because I think if we compare this with like Scream, which Wes Craven did in the 90s, I think he does a good job of giving more character development to the group of people in Scream. And I feel like that franchise was still successful.
Right. Well, I think the difference is that with Scream, the villain was actually alive. It wasn't like a demonic force or an evil spirit. It was an actual person who was doing the killing. And you didn't know who the killer was until the end. So I think that's in a way you had to develop the main characters So that way, when the big twist came, you're like, oh my goodness, how did I miss that?
That is true. That's a really good point. And you're right that it's hard to compare Nightmare on Elm Street to Scream for that reason, that with a Nightmare on Elm Street, it's like the boogeyman haunting your dreams, which is scary because we all have to sleep. I mean, that's the crux of why Freddy's so damn scary. It's like, I gotta go to bed. I can't escape that. I can't stay awake forever.
Eventually, he's going to get you.
Girl, I mean, that's the other thing that sucks about these movies is that, because even at the end of this one, you know, okay, P.S. though, why are you sleeping next to a miniature of the damn house anyways? One. But you see the light go on and you're like, oh man, I just thought this man was dead.
Right. Well, hey, the movie made money, so obviously they're not going to kill Freddy, you know.
Yeah, and it's the same. It's almost like, you know, New Line Cinema and Paramount were like going back and forth of like, we got to kill him off, but they're making us so much money. I mean, Freddy basically built New Line Cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can see why they don't want to kill him off.
Right.
But yeah, so overall, I would say still holds up. Not super scared. But there's still those moments of like, ooh, gotcha.
Yeah. There's still moments where it's like for instance, this is in the very beginning of the movie when Kristen is running through the house, and it's like, you know, you have like the eerie children who are like 1, 2, like that and stuff, and she's like running through the house and she's holding the little girl, and you're kind of like, okay, I know Freddy is somewhere here, but where is he? And then all of a sudden you see the Freddy snake head coming out and going at her, like trying to eat her up and stuff. And you're like, oh, snap. I was not expecting that.
Girl, I mean, so if we're talking about kills, which it sounds like we're going into, because I was going to ask you, what do you think the best kill was? I would say in response to the snake one, first of all, I was like, if I saw those little kids and that little girl ran in the house, sorry, I just can't. Not going in the house, not trying to save you. I don't care. If I can wake myself up, I'll wake myself up.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing... Go ahead.
She didn't die with the snake, remember? The
no,
snake
I know.
Was like eating her. Oh, okay.
No, I know, because I had another point. So no, girl, I got like 2 other points in this. So that was one.
Okay.
I ain't going after no little kid, period. Like, you go in the house, you on your own. Except if it was my kid. But Felix would be too scared to go in the house. Anyways, that's point 1.
Right.
Point 2, if that had been anybody else with the Freddy snake, they would have been dead. So I'm feeling like Kristen got some preferential treatment because nobody sits there and gets almost eaten by the Freddy snake and then wakes up to talk about it. Like, there was at least 3 different times where she should have been dead by Freddy, didn't get killed. And this, to me, goes back to that whole weird thing that they have with blonde-haired, blue-eyed white girls being able to be saved in these damn movies. Because she should have been dead like 3 different times. So that was...
Well, but you know, she's the one who has to survive, though. You know.
I know. I mean, I remember thinking, at least make this plausible. Like, you know, no, she should have gotten swallowed by the Freddy snake. So I was a little annoyed about that. And then the third point that I had about that scene was I felt like it sets up the movie really well. I guess what I would have wished is that they had put a disposable character in that place to just get like a really messy, gross kill in. Because I think, you know, and I keep going back to Scream because that's another Wes Craven movie that I always think about when I think about the Nightmare on Elm Street. And I'm like, you know, you have Drew Barrymore's character, and what's really cool about it is that you think Drew Barrymore is going to be the star, and then she gets killed. And so...
Right.
And it's probably Wes Craven being like, looking at his previous works and going like, how do I flip it on my head? Because I do think, you know, it's one of the things where I was like, even in the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie, I think the first kill is always in some ways the most scary and satisfying. And so it was a little frustrating that, like, you know, she was just like, I almost got eaten by the Freddy snake, but I didn't.
Right. I hear you. I mean, I kind of just saw it as it was a good way to set up and actually bring back Freddy and show, like, oh, he's not really dead. He's back to haunting these kids. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, wait, so what was your favorite kill?
My favorite kill was Jennifer's, when he bashes her head into the TV. I think that whole setup was played out really well because, you know, you have her trying to stay awake, smoking cigarettes, burning herself. And it's like, you don't even really see her fall asleep. Like, you see her doing kind of like the nod off, but then you see her wake up and you're like, oh, and you see her get up and you're like, oh, she's still awake. But no, she's not. She's asleep. And I also appreciated Zsa Gavor's cameo.
That was so funny. And I was reading about that. Did you read about what Robert Englund was saying about Zsa?
Oh, yeah. What was that interviewer's name? Dick Cavett?
Yeah.
Yeah. How he figured that she would be the least person that he would have on her show.
No, there's this other one where, like, Robert Englund, like, he's just kind of, like, shooting the shit, basically, at this point, and he was like, yeah, you know, she was on it, she basically, like, has, like, no idea, like, what the movie's about, who Freddy is, so when she looks like she gets scared, he's like, she's genuinely scared, because she had, like, no idea. He's like, I think her agent just called her and said, hey, we've got, you know, a movie for you, and she basically was like, okay, and didn't even read the script. He said all of her lines were improv.
Oh, wow.
Right? I was cracking up. I was like, oh my God. But it makes sense that, you know, she just was like, oh,
sense, yeah.
Okay. I think my favorite kill, and this is because, so Robert doesn't usually watch these movies, but he ended up sitting with me and watching it. And so we're watching the scene where Joey's about to get some with the girl, the nurse.
Uh-huh.
And Robert was, I remember, so we were watching it, right? And Robert goes, oh my God, this is so dumb. He's like, oh, you know, she has some nice boobies. And I was like, of course you would think that. Of course. And then, you know, he goes in to kiss her and then he gets that nasty deep throat action. And Robert was oh. And so I think what made it funny was seeing his reaction, because he's never seen the movie before. So seeing his reaction to, like, oh, you think he about to get some, whoop, you know, got switched up. Now he's attached to a bed by some tongues. So that was my favorite almost kill that didn't really happen. But I thought it was really funny.
Now, you want to talk about somebody who got preferential treatment. I thought it was that kid. Because it was like anybody else would have been thrown into the pit of fire. But no, he gets to hang there for I don't know how long until they all come to rescue him. He gets to be held up by a bunch of tongues. I was like, for real? For real?
Yeah, and it was kind of weird because I didn't fully understand. Okay, whatever. I mean, it's not like this movie is supposed to be understood, so I get that. With that said, though, I was kind of like, wait, so what's the reason to keep him alive? I really don't understand at all. Like, why?
Yeah, that's how I felt. I was like, why is he still alive? I mean, obviously his voice needed to be heard so he can save his friends, but it would just seem pointless. Like, anybody else would have been thrown into the pit of fire, but no. He gets to hang there and just chill until his friends come.
Right? No, I'm completely with you. Like, that one definitely felt like another person that got preferential treatment because there's no point or no reason for you to stay alive.
But can we also just say that in this movie, the black man survived?
Yes. Can we give it two snaps for Lawrence Fishburne?
Well, he didn't get dragged into the dream, though, but yes, he survived. But Kincaid, who got dragged into the dream, he survived.
Girl, I forgot there was two black men, but you're right. So there's two black men in the movie, well, that Kincaid character was like a fucking joke. Like, he was like a stereotype. But whatever, you right though. Kincaid survived. Larry Fishburne survived. Two black people survived the whole movie. Freddie doesn't come for Larry, he comes for Kincaid, and Kincaid is victorious. So yes, we need to celebrate that fact that black people holding it down. P.S. though, I was like, what black family is trying to burn and murder a child killer? Because let's be real, you already know we both would have just been like, time to move from Elm Street.
There you go.
Sell the house, put it up. You know what I mean? And it's like, you are sitting there thinking, I don't even need to get this house for the full amount of money. I just need to get the hell out of this neighborhood. Period.
Right.
So there's some questions about what black family is up here trying to burn somebody anyways. Okay. So we talked about the movie. We did have a shout out Larry Fishburne, Patricia Arquette. Those are probably the two most well-known people in the film. Yeah. Let's go to our segment where we talk about the top grossing movies in 1987. All right, girl. I'm going to ask you, can you guess what the top grossing movie is in 1987?
Okay, I'm trying to remember what came out in 1987. Let's see.
You won't get number one, but you should get number two.
Is this still like the scary movie realm or just in general?
No, just in general. Do you want me to give you a hint?
Was it Cocoon?
Ooh, it was not Cocoon, but Steve Guttenberg is also in this movie, and it's not Police Academy.
Oh, man. Was he in the Field of Dreams?
No, that was Kevin Costner. Girl, I just watched that movie recently. Did I tell you that?
Oh, no, you didn't.
Yeah, Robert liked that movie because he likes all those, like, A Field of Dreams, West of the Mohicans, so Dances with Wolves.
Okay, you're going to have to give me a hint. Okay. The only thing right now I can think of Steve Guttenberg is Police Academy.
Should I give you an obvious hint, though? Because once I say the name, you're going to get it. Okay, think Ted Danson. Think Tom Selleck.
Oh, Three Men and a Little Baby?
That's it.
Oh, that was a good movie.
Girl, wasn't it? Because I feel like that, when I saw that was the top movie, that gave me all the feels. Because I remember both of us, we would watch 3 Men and a Baby. And I was like, aww.
You know what? I totally forgot he was in that movie. Like, I knew there was 3 guys in the movie, but all I could picture was Ted Danson and Tom Selleck.
Right? But that's what I was the same way. And I was like, because that's all I can think about too. Because I remember as a kid, like, I was always kind of like gravitated towards Tom Selleck. And I think because he was like the responsible one that kind of had all this shit together. And I think as a younger child, I'm realizing I think we gravitate towards responsibility. But yeah, I was like, oh yeah, Steve Guttenberg was in that movie. He's the third man.
I think too, like with Tom Selleck, you know, he had the mustache, the iconic mustache.
Yes.
And then Ted Danson, you know, he was the funny guy. I think Cheers was still on. I think Cheers. Yeah. I think Cheers was on TV then. So he was having his, like, mainstream popularity. So I can kind of see why Steve Guttenberg is kind of pushed into the background.
I also think in terms of like, because yes, Cheers was definitely on. In terms of like attractiveness alone, I'm going to just keep it 100 and say that definitely Tom Selleck, Ted Danson. Like those are the two main attractive people. Wow, I'm just objectifying the hell out of this podcast. You know, and Steve Guttenberg is like, he's like their cool, funny friend, you know? Like,
yeah.
Aw,
it's kind of like,
there.
You know, bring up a little something more recent. It's kind of like, you know, Full House. We all know John Stamos.
Mm-hmm.
He was gorgeous. I mean, back then he was gorgeous. He's gorgeous now.
Mm-hmm.
But we kind of forget about, the fun uncle. I can't even remember the actor's
Girl,
name.
why you hate our Uncle Joey? It was
No.
Uncle
No, Josh Davis was Uncle Joey.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
what was his name? You're right.
See?
Shit.
It was like the goofy uncle who did the voices.
His name was like Dave in real. Girl, Robert about to do one of those production edit notes. Blah, blah, blah. Whatever.
He is. Because I can see the guy's face. I can't think of his name.
What was it? I can't even remember. Damn. You right. But we didn't really watch Full House like that anyways.
No, I mean, yeah, we weren't like, I don't remember what day it came on, but, we saw a couple of episodes.
Yeah, like we watched a couple. Yeah.
But it's kind of like, we remember Uncle Joey because he was fine. Bob Saget's character because he was the main character. But
that was Danny Tanner.
Yeah.
What was that damn uncle's name?
See? We'll leave it to the producer. He's going to put in the production note.
Sure will. Girl, he will. Okay, so the number 2 movie, think Michael Douglas.
Fatal Attraction?
Girl, yes. I was like, oh yeah, that was number 2, huh? And then the number 3 is Beverly Hills Cop 2. Right? Which I don't really remember being as good as Beverly Hills Cop, but let's not sleep on Eddie Murphy, who is like a comedic, not even just comedic genius, but just is like, I think, a genius overall.
Right.
I will say though, so to me, what was a big surprise is that in terms of like grossing movies for that year, Nightmare on Elm Street comes in number 24, which actually is not bad. That's actually really good and surprising to me.
That isn't, that's not bad at all. Especially for a sequel.
I was surprised because some of like, our favorite movies that came out, I want to say, for example, one of the ones that I remember us, watching a fair amount was, remember Mannequin?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Like Mannequin came under that one, like, in terms of gross, it was actually got less money, which I was surprised about. Chipmunk Adventure, that came in number 100, right? Another movie that we watched a ton. So, there's just some, there's some movies in here where I was surprised. Harry and the Hendersons, which I was hella scared of as a kid.
But I remember being creeped out by that movie.
Harry and the Hendersons, right?
Yes. I can't remember, like... I remember bits and pieces of the plot, but I just remember being creeped out by that. I don't know what he was, like Bigfoot or something.
He was.
It was just so creepy. Yeah.
It's super creepy. I remember Dad would put it on and I would like run and hide. It was, let's be real though, I was hella scary as a kid and there's a bunch of movies that I would run and hide on. But that was one of them. It came on recently and I was like, wow, this is crazy. We were like watching a little bit of it.
But I guess we can't be surprised because I believe Alf was popular during that time. So I think it gets prompted people to release a bunch of like these alien Bigfoot movies. It was just weird though.
Oh, but I
did like Alf.
Right? Like Alf never freaked me out. I think I had an Alf stuffed animal.
I don't remember that. But I think Alf kind of came across it. Alf was also tiny too, so it wasn't like this 6 foot tall beast walking around the house.
I never knew that you were like freaked out by Harry and the Hendersons, though.
Yes, I remember that he had to be like 6 feet tall, and it's like this Bigfoot walking around, and I'm like, what the?
That's so weird.
Forward, I saw Jim Carrey's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. I actually saw that in theaters. I was creeped out by the 6 foot tall Grinch because it was live action, and I was like, why did they think we want to see a 6-foot-tall Grinch on the big screen. It was creepy. I mean, the movie is not meant to be creepy, but seeing a 6-foot-tall Grinch in theaters on the big screen, oh, it was creepy. I was like, no. I see why the movie bombed.
No,
creepy.
you know what? I've only seen the like old school Grinch movie, and I think Felix watched not the Jim Carrey one, but the newer one that came out. He watched that one, but I've never taken him to see it because I was like, yeah, I don't think, who wants to see that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's just, I think it kind of falls into that realm of it might be too adult for kids, but too childish for adults. And the 6-foot-tall Grinch, creepy. I mean, it was just scary.
Yes, definitely. I can see that. Didn't watch it, but can see that. New light bulb here around Harry and the Hendersons. Although it's interesting because I remember you not being scared of Nightmare on Elm Street and me being terrified. Like to the point where I remember when we were in the pizza parlor as kids and they had that like, you know, Freddy on the news talking about how he was dead or he was dying in this movie. And I remember being so scared at the pizza parlor that I was like crying because I didn't want to see it on the screen. And Dad was like, Chanel, you gonna be all right. Chanel, calm down. And I was just like, do you not see how this would be terrifying? And you were just like eating your pizza like, oh, okay, Freddy's on the TV.
I do not remember that.
Yes. And you were just like chilling there. And it was when we were at Pizza Hut and they used to have those personal pan pizzas.
Uh-huh.
I remember like if you read a certain amount of books, you'd get like a little certificate where you could go and get the free pizza. And so we were at Pizza Hut eating our little pan pizzas and I was like crying because he wouldn't get off the TV screen and Dad was like covering my eyes, but I could still like see and hear him. And you were just like eating your pizza, like, I remember that.
No, I do not remember that. Well, since you have kids, do they still have that where if you read a certain number of books, you get the personal pan pizza?
Girl, you know what? They don't. And you know what's crazy about doing this podcast with you is that like weird things that I haven't thought of in like years will come up. Like that certificate program. And I'm like, oh yeah, with Felix, you know, we do a reading log with him, but there's no prize or reward or anything like that.
Oh, that sucks.
I know. And I remember thinking like it was cool if you think about it for parents because we would go for dinner and now I'm kind of like, oh, it was probably great for mom and dad because they'd be like, okay, you guys turn in your certificates, get your own pan pizza. And then mom and dad could order whatever they wanted to eat. Cause I remember I did not want any combination pizza ever. I always wanted pepperoni.
Well, I think if you had the little coupon for the personal pan pizza, I think you could only get pepperoni, I think.
Yeah,
pepperoni
but I'm saying
cheese.
that I never ate combination as a kid anyways. I only ever ate pepperoni.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Remember, because we always used to do the half pepperoni, half combination? And can I just say a shout out to mom and dad for that? Because usually they'll just force us to eat whatever, but they actually would make it special. Be like half pepperoni, half combination. Since you did not eat combination,
but you did. You ate combination.
I ate combination. Yeah.
Isn't that weird? It makes me wonder if like Felix's like his eating stuff comes from me. Cause I'm like, oh yeah, I only ate pepper. Anyways, it's just weird. Like I said, doing this podcast with you, like all this weird stuff as a kid. Cause I'm like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, mom and dad would for like hamburgers, I wouldn't eat lettuce, tomatoes, or onions. So they always had to get me a cheeseburger that didn't have lettuce or tomatoes or onions on it.
Yeah. And then I also remember that when they would order Chinese food, you always wanted the shrimp fried rice. So they would always get shrimp fried rice.
Damn. Did I like
Well, now we see where Felix gets his picky eating from.
The worst part is that Robert's going to have to edit this, and he's going to be like, damn, Chanel, I knew it came from your side. Oh, man. All right, girl. We have had too much fun. We've got one more, right? So one more film in terms of the Hollywood horror. What is it, Vanessa?
Candyman.
Girl, can I just tell you right now, with my current lens on race, class, and gender, I have been waiting to watch this movie with you. Like, no lie.
Yes. Candyman it's not just a scary movie, but it's also a social commentary about white America versus black America, about the haves and the have-nots, those who have the money, those who don't have the money. What is it called? It's like when you glorify poverty. I forgot the term for it, though. It's kind of like when you have the people who have the money, who have the power and the privilege, they go to these impoverished neighborhoods, and it's like they're a tourist at the zoo, like taking pictures.
Yes. Yes, they are. I mean, it's going to be interesting watching this because I'm also in an interracial relationship. And, you know, so I think there's just levels to this shit, basically. And
there is.
I forgot
about that, too, the interracial aspect of it,
right?
Too.
So, because I remember when we watched it as kids, number one, yes, I was hella scary. So I don't even remember, like, I remember, again, being under a cover. But there's all this stuff now that I think is going to come out. And this will, to me, probably be the most serious, you know, podcast in our Halloween set because of, like you said, all of the socioeconomic commentary that's coming from this film.
Yeah.
So if y'all haven't watched Candyman, get woke, go watch it because Vanessa and I will be discussing it.
Yes.
All right, girl. Before we go, I'm going to remind people we are officially back, as in we will be having regular podcasts. So, you know, Candyman is the next movie we're talking about in our Hollywood horror series. We encourage you to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. We are Holler FM. So if you're looking for us, you can search Holler FM and we should come up on all of those social media sites. If you want to make a campaign for Vanessa to get on social media, feel free to do so because she still is not. You can.
Well, let me tell you something real quick. I might have to go on the Instagram because Instagram has become smart to my little Insta stalking. So now, like when I go through like people's like Instagrams, it'll let me go through for like maybe a few pictures, and all of a sudden it'll pop up with like, "Oh, you need to log on to Instagram." And then when I hit refresh and start trying to scroll through, it'll say the same thing. You need to log on to Instagram. I was like, "Okay, Instagram, I see you trying to force me to sign up."
I mean, I'm just saying, Instagram is not that bad. Just saying, because you can even still lurk when you have your Instagram page and you can set it to private and you can accept who you want. It's not like Facebook where I feel like there's all that pressure to accept all these different people. It's really actually a lot more chill because you can just go and people won't know if you don't, you know, accept them.
Well, we'll see. How about that? We'll see.
We'll see. You can also listen to us and subscribe on Spotify, on Stitcher, on Apple, iTunes. If you listen to us on iTunes, give us a 5-star review. And you can always go to the website holler.fm and click on contact to leave us any feedback, any thoughts. Our producer has told us that we have to give more advance notice if we want you to weigh in on a film. So if there's any films or TV shows that you want to hear our thoughts on, particularly if they came out in the 80s or the 90s, or even the 2000s, let us know.
Double O's.
And on that note, go ahead, Vanessa.
Wait, I was saying, like, we did we are thinking about actually doing like the TV series in November, like TV shows that we saw as kids. We're thinking about doing that in November. December, we're still looking for suggestions, themes, holiday movies you want us to review.
Yes, that is completely true. So in November, as Vanessa mentioned, we are looking and thinking about TV shows. So if there are particular gems that you're, like, I love this TV show, whether it's Friends, whether it's Living Single, whether it's Martin, whether it's Seinfeld, let us know. I mean, for example, we never watched Seinfeld as kids, but I think we'd always be open to reviewing it.
Yeah, there's no point in reviewing that. No.
How are you about to ask for feedback and then tell people no? You can't.
Well, I'm just saying though, is that if y'all put Seinfeld up there, I ain't gonna have like a huge basis because I can count on one hand the number of Seinfeld episodes I've seen.
Well, the point is that if people are like, well, we want to hear your thoughts on Seinfeld, we can just say, like, we can watch like 3 episodes. And Robert watched it, so we can always use Robert as like the barometer.
Oh, that is true. Right? That is true. We can have that's true. We can have Robert come in.
Yeah. So let us know, and then Vanessa's right.
He could be like, I'm like, he could be like, so, what did you think as a black woman watching Seinfeld? Because I always feel like we're always like, so Robert, how did you feel like as a white man watching this?
We should have Robert watch Candyman and join that one. That's an interesting thought. But we could, because I don't remember seeing a ton of diversity on Seinfeld. I mean, again, I didn't really watch it, so.
Well, like I said, I can count on one hand the number of Seinfeld episodes I've seen.
Yeah, I think I can do this. I mean, I feel like I'm conversant in Seinfeld because I've dated people who watched it, so I kind of have to know, like, Kramer, Elaine, all these different, the soup Nazi guy. But, like, yeah, it wasn't in our lexicon, for sure.
No. But I can definitely do We Are Living Single. Anyways, okay.
Okay.
But enough of that.
Yes. So give us your suggestions. We will be open, right, Vanessa?
We'll be open.
To the TV shows. And then in December, if there are key holiday movies that we definitely need to put on the docket, whether it's A Wonderful Life, Miracle on 34th Street, all the way up to, the Santa Claus with Tim Allen,
A Christmas Story.
Right, A Christmas Story, Elf with Will Ferrell. We're very open to suggestions on those fronts too. So let us know.
Yeah.
All right, Vanessa. It's that time. We out.
It's that time, y'all. Oh.
Mic drop.
This was a Holler FM podcast.
And I think we're done.